Hello and welcome to the Ortiz Subcontractor Safety Orientation. My name is Gary Gore. I'm the Ortiz Contracting Group Director of Safety. I have a CSP and a STSC credential through the Board of Certified Safety Professionals. Anyone at any time can contact me on my mobile phone at 779-456-0517 or my email ggore@ortizcontracting.com. Safety orientation, we will discuss safety rules and regulations that will help ensure that all workers work in the safest environment as possible. Handouts. It is very important that everyone completes the handouts that you should have received from your supervisor. If you do not receive those handouts and there is a presenter present in front of you, please ask the presenter now. The handouts can also be located at the end of the subcontractor manual that yourself or your supervisor should have already received. Let's begin. This orientation will follow the Ortiz Contracting Subcontractor Safety Handbook. Everyone will receive an electronic copy of this handbook via email. If you would like a hard copy, just ask. Welcome. We want to thank you for being a member of the Ortiz Contracting team. We set the bar very high in safety and we expect every one of our subcontractors to do the same. This is a brief overview of our safety policies. These policies are a combination of federal rules and regulations, company policies, and site-specific standards. These policies may change at any time depending on job site changes, newly imposed site-specific standards, federal regulation changes, or state-managed safety programs. If at any time you have questions, please contact the Ortiz Safety Director, Gary Gore, at 779-456-0517 or email me at ggore@ortizcontracting.com. Safety commitment. We want everyone to own safety. If something cannot be performed safely, it will not be completed. Any worker at any time has the right to stop and refuse unsafe work without the fear of repercussion from anyone. Please, be your brother's keeper. If anyone at any time has a safety question and they want to remain anonymous, they can call the Ortiz Contracting Safety Director, Gary L. Gore, at 779-456-0517 or email at ggore@ortizcontracting.com. Your name will remain anonymous per your request. Housekeeping. It is everyone's job to keep up with their housekeeping. Examples would be keeping trash picked up, proper storage of materials, proper routing of electrical cords, etc. Emergency medical response. It is of the utmost importance that all workers receive prompt medical service. Please be aware of your nearest clinic or hospital and make sure everyone understands how to call for emergency medical services. Fire protection and prevention. Every subcontractor must have a written fire prevention protection plan in place, as outlined in OSHA. Do not store flammables with combustibles. Do not block emergency exit routes. Make sure all compressed gas cylinders are stored in compliance with OSHA. If the bottles are not in use, please remove the regulators and place the caps on the bottles. Portable fire extinguishers. All workers must have been trained on the use of fire extinguishers. Make sure we inspect our fire extinguishers at least monthly or prior to each hot work. Make sure the needle is in the green. Make sure there is an annual inspection tag on the extinguisher. Make sure there is no white powder falling out of the hose. Make sure the cylinder is in good condition. First aids and first aid kits. Make sure that all workers know the location of their first aid kits. If you do not have a first aid kit, please get one. Your first aid kit must be suitable to support the number of workers that you have on site. If you have a first aid, please report it to your supervisor. The number one thing we fight against in any first aid is infection. Pushing and pulling. We ask that everyone get assistance in lifting anything over 50 pounds. If you're the new worker on the job, please don't think you have to demonstrate how strong you are to make a difference. You only hurt yourself or others due to improper lifting. Slips, trips, and falls. Keep all standing water, snow, ice, etc. cleaned up to help prevent slips, trips, and falls. If an area becomes unsafe to walk or stand on, barricade it off. Reroute traffic until the area becomes safe. Ladders. All ladders must be inspected prior to each use and used as they were intended by the ladder manufacturer. All affixed labels must be in place. No broken rungs or cracks are acceptable. If your ladder has excessive buildup of materials like mud, concrete, etc. on the rungs, please clean it off. Example, do not lean step ladders against surfaces and access them. Climb ladders with one hand and 2 feet or 2 hands and 1 foot. Do not carry large loads up a ladder that may cause you to fall off or overload the ladder. Basic tools and power tools. Use all tools as they were intended to be used for. Example, don't use a flat tip screwdriver as a pry bar. If lowering a power tool, disconnect the battery first. If it's corded, do not lower the tool by the cord. Please check cords for damage before each use as well. Personal protective equipment, or PPE. The minimum PPE requirements are hard hat, safety glasses, earplugs, high-vis clothing, safety-toed footwear. Do not wear street shoes into the working area. Ground fault circuit interrupters, or GFCI. A GFCI must always be at the source. Please inspect your GFCI to make sure it works prior to each use. Signs, tags, and barricades. Certain job tasks require that signage be present. Make sure you have the proper signage in place to warn others of the dangers. Adequate lighting. Make sure there is adequate lighting in place as outlined in OSHA 1926.56. Drugs and alcohol. There will be zero tolerance for any illegal drugs and/or alcohol possession, use, or distribution on site. This includes but is not limited to marijuana or any of its derivatives. Workplace violence. There will be zero tolerance for any horseplaying or fighting on the job site. Accident investigation. All accidents and near misses need to be reported immediately. Please report them to your supervision. Supervision. Please follow your call tree for the correct routes of incident reporting. Please make sure someone calls Gary L. Gore and reports the incident as soon as possible. Gary's cell phone is 779-456-0517. Safety meetings and job hazard analysis. Everyone must attend all site safety meetings or safety-related events. Every subcontractor must complete a daily job hazard assessment prior to each work task at the start of every shift. Be descriptive in your JHA, and this is your roadmap and legal document for your work. Please remember to sign out at the end of each day from your JHA. Recognition of specific job site hazards. Everyone must be aware of ever-changing hazards on their job sites. Please report hazards to your supervisor. Please notate hazards on your JHA as they occur. Control of hazardous energy, lockout, tagout, also known as LOTO. Any subcontractor conducting LOTO must have a written LOTO plan in place. All lotto forms must be completed and followed in accordance with OSHA 29 CFR 1910.147 and 29 CFR 1926 Subpart K. Everyone must have their own lotto-specific lock with one key. All workers must be accounted for prior to cutting a lock. No exceptions. Exposure control plan, bloodborne pathogens or other infectious materials. Please, always protect yourself when dealing with blood or other infectious materials. Each subcontractor must have a written bloodborne pathogen exposure control plan in place that is in accordance with OSHA. Fall protection. Know and follow your site-specific fall protection requirements. All fall protection must be inspected prior to each use. If your fall protection is faulty, please report it to your supervision. If you have a 4-foot tie-off requirement, you should be using self-retracting lanyards, also known as SRLs, not double-leg lanyards. This is due to the fall clearance. You will hit the ground and still be tied off. Know your site-specific tie-off requirements. Forklifts and aerial lifts, also known as mobile elevated work platforms, or MUPs. All forklift operators must be trained and have a card on their person. Please document your forklift inspection prior to each use and make sure that you only operate the machine as it was intended. All workers using a MUP must be trained and have the training on their person. All MUPs must be inspected prior to each use and must be documented. All MUPs must only be used as they were intended by the manufacturer. Hazard communication. All subcontractors must have a written hazard communication standard in place in accordance with OSHA 1910.1200. All employees must be trained on their company's HAZCOM standards. Any subcontractor using any chemicals, aerosols, etc. of any kind must have a safety data sheet, also known as SDS, readily available to all of their employees. When you leave site, take your chemicals, paints, and aerosols, etc. with you. Hearing conservation. Please follow your site-specific standards or refer to OSHA 1926.52. We require that earplugs be always worn. In certain cases, you may be asked to wear double hearing protection earplugs with earmuffs worn over the earplugs. Confined spaces in construction. Confined space work must have detailed written confined space paperwork completed prior to starting confined space work. Please refer to site-specific standards or OSHA 29 CFR 1926 Subpart AA. Everyone must be trained in confined spaces prior to going into one. See the handouts in the subcontractor manual for confined spaces. Respiratory protection. Any subcontractor that produces or could produce silica dust must have a written silica exposure control plan in place. All their workers must be trained on this topic. If you see silica dust, stop. You must follow OSHA 29 CFR 1926.1153. Any worker wearing any half or full face mask must have completed a medical examination questionnaire, also known as an MEQ, and have passed a fit test. This must be done for each brand of mask. Scaffolds. All scaffolds must be erected by a certified scaffold builder. Anyone accessing a scaffold must look for the following: a signature tag showing that the scaffold has been inspected that day, a green or yellow tag on the scaffold. A green tag means the scaffold meets all OSHA requirements. If it's a yellow tag scaffold, the scaffold user must comply with the hazards notated on the yellow tag.
If there is no tag or a red tag, the scaffold cannot be used. Asbestos, lead, and mold. No worker will work around asbestos, lead, or mold. If your area is suspected to contain asbestos, lead, or mold, all work must stop. Workers will evacuate the area in question and testing must be completed. If there is a positive test, abatement by a trained and authorized workers must be completed. An additional test should be completed after abatement to rule out any residual asbestos, lead, or mold. After a negative test result is obtained, work may resume in that area. Every subcontractor must have a policy in place for asbestos, lead, and mold awareness, and their employees shall receive training prior to their arrival to site.
Conclusion. This concludes the Ortiz Contracting Subcontractor Safety Orientation. Please, to get credit for taking this course, please send me a copy of the completed form to ggore@ortizcontracting.com or take a photo of it and text it to my cell phone at 779-456-0517. I've also included a QR code for my LinkedIn page. I look forward to connecting with you, and please, if you have any questions, do not hesitate to ask.